Hello class, Dr. Mack here, just checking in. We are on week 5, and this week we look and explore the issue of power. Power comes in all types of ways, from positional power to informal and formal power. Think about that person at work who's been there for 10 years but isn't in a management role or a leadership role. But they have that informal power. You go to them because they've been there, so they know how the systems work and processes, so you might ask them specific questions. And then you might have more formal power as far as positional, your supervisors, leaders in an organization. With the politics that goes on in the workplace, you're going to come across personal conflicts, organizational conflicts, and so it's important to understand our role in those conflicts and how to handle those conflicts, how to do better in those conflicts. So this week, in your readings, you learn about the different stages of the conflict process, how you participate in conflict, how you might avoid it, how you might negotiate, compromise, and those are all different ways of handling conflict. Some not as positive as others, because then it just, if you avoid the conflict, then it tends to resurface and pop up here and there again and again. So I want to share an example. You might work in organizations that have conflict that happens daily. You might be a first responder, you might be an essential employee, you might work for a corporation. Some of those conflicts, there's room to grow and move. So usually when a conflict happens, it's because you have opposing views. For example, you have a stake in the conversation, in the conflict, and you state with intensity your stake and your thoughts. And sometimes your thoughts are movable. Sometimes you can allow that space to compromise in that conflict or dialogue between another person. Sometimes your thoughts and decisions, they can be not movable. So I want to provide some examples in that. So boulders, we'll use that as a term, are heavy but can be moved with effort. So if you have a boulder, you can move it with effort. So if I have a view or perspective on something, some views and perspectives can be moved with perhaps a new view or understanding why we might do a process that way. Tombstones, on the other hand, are items that cannot be moved. These are stakes that I really believe in. This cannot be moved. And usually that's when conflict happens, when some items are movable, other people don't want to move, some items are not movable. And I'll give you an example. I have an acquaintance that works in a helping profession of animal welfare. And in that helping profession, this acquaintance had once worked for a shelter that conducted euthanasia. That person, my friend's stance on euthanasia was absolutely not. So that was a boulder to her. We do not do euthanasia, especially when it's just for space-related issues, like we have an overabundance of cats, so we need to put some down. That is not ethical to her. That was a boulder, my apologies, a tombstone, because it was not movable. We are not to kill animals to make space, because that is not ethical. It's a tombstone. It's not movable. But perhaps the shelter was doing that. And so, I want to provide that example. However, in the same sense, that person could also have a boulder. It's heavy but movable. Okay, what about euthanasia for animals if they are sick and cannot be helped? Is that okay? Okay, then my boulder becomes movable, and that is the process of conflict. So sometimes you have to compromise. Sometimes things aren't able to be compromised. No, I do not believe in euthanasia for making free space in a animal shelter. Or I do believe in euthanasia when it is medically related, or perhaps when an animal is at a risk to the community. And so those are some examples that I just wanted to share with you of how conflict works. Sometimes, you have two rocks, and they might be stubborn in their ways, and you have to find a way to compromise. You have to find a way to negotiate, and sometimes that requires your moving, your thoughts moving. Sometimes it requires the other person's moving, and sometimes it requires both of you moving and your views in the conflict. So I look forward to your examples this week and how you dissect them as you move through each of the stages. And I appreciate your continued engagement. I liked the questions that people posed on my initial post. I'm glad you're enjoying the videos and infographics and additional resources. And I hope this is beneficial to you in your workplace and that you can apply some of these concepts today and tomorrow. And if you're interested in more information about Tombstones, Boulders, it's actually in a book called Opening Doors to Teamwork and Collaboration, and it's called 4 Keys That Change Everything, and it's by Katz, K-A-T-Z, and Miller. It's a great book if you're interested in that content area, and I look forward to reading your post this week. Take care.